honestly one of the most anticipated guests on the show. If you're a longtime listener, we've even called him the mascot of the center ring, and we'll explain to him why. He probably doesn't know his celebrity status on the show, but we are super excited to finally have the one, the only, Launders. What is up, sir?
Well, 250 episodes in, yeah, there's a lot to sift through. So I'm not sure where the reference comes from, but I'm excited to find out.
There's several. There's several.
Okay.
Several. And you might not remember some of them, but yeah, dude, we are super excited to have you on. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's been a long time. I think I was working at Yahoo, right? When I met you guys at Dallas. Yeah, so
yeah,
definitely a long time ago.
Seems like a different lifetime ago that Yahoo had esports.
Esports years in general. So much happens. I mean, do you guys do much traveling for events?
50-50. We go to some like here and there. We go to the big ones.
Okay. Yeah, the big ones. And I don't know. I feel like the traveling just makes those years so much more dense than if you were to just have like your 9 to 5 plus you just do whatever at home, traveling to different cities for this different events. When I first started out in Counter-Strike, I thought I was going to remember every single major and all of the matches that happened and who was the best team and what team roster there was. Now, if you quiz me on something that happened 3 years ago, I can't remember which lineup won which event. Like, it's all become a blur.
3 years.
Not the historian, right?
No. Yeah, I'm no Duncan.
There's times on the show where it's like, oh yeah, do you remember way back when? And we were like, that was only like a month ago. And it feels forever in esports times.
Well, rosters change so quickly now. I mean, shoot, I don't even remember who won the ESL Pro League back then. Was that G2? When we were all there in Dallas? I couldn't even tell you.
I think so. G2 won one of them in Dallas.
That was when G2 was like, it was like their new roster.
It was right after the French shuffle.
Just picked up Kenny S again.
Yeah.
Right after the French shuffle.
G2 stonks were way up, but then it didn't work out for very long, I don't think.
They've been back and forth since then. It's not like much has changed actually for that roster. It feels like they just rinse and repeat.
And
kind of.
French.
They're not so bad right now. They're definitely doing. I think this is I feel like we say this about every roster, like the best version of the roster that we've seen.
Well, they got Astralis coming up here, right? And Road to Rio coming up in the upper bracket for them, so they have a chance to push through, I think, to the upper finals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the online results are so it's so strange because like on the one hand everybody's playing online, but it feels like there needs to be some kind of gestation period for the teams that are playing online to get used to that environment, because like some teams are shrimp dick. Like Navi was amazing, Katowice, and as soon as everything went online, just fell off the face of the earth. So it feels strange that like so much can change by just going online, even knowing that everybody's in the same boat as you. But still, it still affects the outcome of the matches. And I in my interviews at Blast, week to week, we do these like Blast sessions, and I asked Sonic, I asked Lige, and everyone pretty much said it's because the pressure's off a little bit, not the LAN environment. But I think it's just such a tremendous difference between online and LAN is just so it's confusing. Honestly, it's confusing.
Do you think it benefits then the, I don't want to say weaker teams, but the teams that aren't on as big of stages as often? Would it benefit them more? Or do you think it's like a mental for the big dogs? Like they're like, oh, this isn't fair because of course it's fine because it's online? Or
I think part of it is they expect to win, so there's probably some ego that comes into it. And then there's the kids that have played all of their games online. They've got like their seat height, the perfect amount of height from the floor, and like the right desk, and they know they have a ruler for everything to make sure they're like everything's arranged properly. And it's just a place of comfort for them. They've played all their matches there. And on LAN, I think it's kind of the great equalizer because everyone's got a same setup, but different to what the last setup they used was, even if it was another tournament. And so it tells you a lot. I mean, if you're a little nervous and you're playing on a slightly different setup, then that amplifies how badly you'll play by like a huge margin. So I think some of the only reason that some of these kids are not great players is quite simply the only difference is the nerves. They have the talent, they know the strats, but they can't get over the pressure. They can't overcome the circumstances. That's what makes these great players great. If you take that away from them, it's really hard to tell who the best is.
So how much stock do you put into like the current rankings the way they are right now after a couple of months of being online?
Such a weird time, like I don't know. It's such a weird time because it no one knows when it ends. Like right now, Rio I think it's more likely that the Rio Major is online or canceled than happening, right? That seems so unlikely. It's the most international tournament. There has to be Asian teams, OCE, Europe, everything. So there's the most chances that there's going to be some conflict of like teams or countries not being able to send players out. Brazil is not in a great place right now as it stands. So uh, to think like the entirety of the year will be like this online ranking, it's like at a certain point you have to just say like this is, it'll forever be the ranking will forever be remembered as like the online year, and it will have an asterisk on it, and we'll have to think about the fact that all of their results came while they're online. I guess the true champions are the things that'll tell us the most is that when we come out of this into the first few lands post Rona, then we'll know if teams kept up their success, then there was some legitimacy to their online results.
Would you prefer the major go online or just be canceled at that point if they're not able to attend it in person? Like you can't attend it in person.
I think the only big events that continued on, like the Dota LA Major, continued on. I think the only reason that event, even continued was because it was so close. Like no one knew if if they could fly people out or not. What's that?
It was like the week before too. It was like one of the first when Corona really hit.
Yeah, and they were gonna have a big arena and stuff, but it was just too late to cancel stuff. So I think, I don't think I think the international's canceled. That's another Valve event. So I don't feel like they're gonna let it. I feel like they'll just cancel it, and then we'll just have like it was a joke, like Road to Rio Part 2, like double the points, and we'll see who gets there next year, 2021.
You probably know more than we do just from behind the scenes, but when the majors were originally rescheduled and everyone was kind of thrown back into the ring, and now it's like the Wild West with the Road to Rio, I kind of like that. I wouldn't hate if we did this for every major, where we started from square one, there were no legend teams, nothing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the rankings are fleeting, and every few months there could plausibly be another top team, or at least the top 3 changes like drastically. So I'd say it does make sense, and I think the new major rules do reflect slotting in teams who have done well recently for the future majors. That was the original plan with Rio, but then they added this whole road to Rio with points along the year, since they postponed the first half of the year. So I think that is the plan moving forward, that like in the future, teams that win a big events close to the major will get those spots. I think it's rough if you like do top 8 at a major and you aren't rewarded anything when you moving on, but besides money or prestige, I guess. But yeah, I'd have to look at the rules again to see exactly what they did. But yeah, there's more credence now for those teams.
So we kind of teased at the start of the show. Do you want to get into the background story now of why he is the mascot of TCR?
Yeah, I think we should let him know. I mean, this started, what was it, DreamHack 2016?
Yeah, so
in
Austin? It was the first year DreamHack was in North America, in Texas, in Austin, 2016. You were casting. Yeah. Out of curiosity, do you remember a group of, I will say, young, maybe obnoxious guys that every time they saw you would just yell your name?
I think so, because we had the desk that faced out towards the crowd, and we had bright lights shining on us. But then when we were casting from that desk, like you could hear stuff, but when you looked out, you couldn't see anything. So, but I remember that slightly.
It was like everywhere in the hotel. You couldn't get away from it. Well, that was us. And we were we were just young bucks at the time. We just started the podcast, and your career was relatively young then too.
Yeah,
I think that was pretty early on in your casting career, wasn't it?
That was so right before that, I did the MLG minor in Columbus, and then that was my first DreamHack ever. Since then I've done like 50 in DreamHacks or something.
Right.
So that was the first DreamHack ever. that was like my biggest event at the time. I was like so stoked to get to a LAN, to be in Austin. I've been in Austin many, many times because my brother lives there, but for an event. And then I think it was also the first North American DreamHack as well. So it was kind of a big occasion. So yeah, all those things in total, and it made it a pretty special event.
The thing is, we weren't even only yelling at him in the state. We, like you said, at the hotel, we happened to all be in the same hotel, which was like right across from the venue. And there was one night we're out there for Tim's bachelor party, is why we were actually in Austin. And we were like, well, let's go to DreamHack at the same time. We're walking back from the bar. It must have been like right as they were closing, around 2:00, and we're getting Tim drunk pretty much for the first time. Okay, Tim's not a big drinker, so he was like sloshed this night. We're going back to the lobby, and we go, you know what? If we see Launders, we're going to go back out. You have to go back out, Tim. It's not time to go to sleep. Thinking there's no chance in hell that we see you. And sure enough, 2:15, we're back in the lobby, and who comes strolling in the other side? Our boy Launders walks into the lobby. We got a picture with you in the lobby that night, but we were like, no, fuck this. We gotta go. We gotta go to sleep. We cannot go back out. This was way too unexpected. But yeah, it was just random. And obviously, you know, we got a chance to spend some time with you in ESL for the Pro League Dallas. Again, that was in 2017. Again, that was when you were with Yahoo, which was that's about a 6-month stint basically that they had going there with you, right? Roughly.
Yeah, I was there for 3 months. Like I worked there for 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was a fun event. I mean, we again, we've kind of just followed your career, your journey throughout Counter-Strike. You know, you've provided so much content. You have a podcast of your own as well, right? The Esports Life, I believe it is.
Yeah. My podcaster moved back in with his mom, so he doesn't want to record any more episodes. But that was going pretty strong. Not as strong as you guys though. 250 is pretty incredible.
What are you at?
I think 60-ish.
Oh, that's pretty solid. I mean, most podcasts we've noticed kind of tail off around that 15-20 mark. Like they kind of dwindle off.
I mean, you guys are resilient. I mean, lots of podcasts come and go, right? They're kind of like bacteria. You never know. Anything will kill them. Right? Yep. But you guys have stuck around. One of the few. You're probably in the 0.01% of podcasts.
We always joke, but I think it is serious. Like we are probably the longest running esports podcast that covers all esports. I know there's probably some league out there, like League of Legends podcast that's been around longer, but when it comes to a variety show, not really come up to head. But in our defense, Launders, we really don't have a whole lot going on outside of this in life.
Just wives and kids. That's it.
Like, just wives and children. So nothing too important to us. So this is kind of it. You, on the other hand, I mean, it seems like before the quarantine, I couldn't pin out where you were in the world.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, that was because like right before the quarantine, I was Blast Spring Series, and then right before that, I was traveling with my girlfriend through Southeast Asia, and like right before that I was in Blast Bahrain, and then
I went to some wedding. I saw some wedding pictures and all that were posted of all of you guys. And
do you know who Vansilli is?
Yeah. I mean, we know who he is. We don't know him personally, but we know who he is.
So in like October or something, Vansilli, because he's just the kind of guy to not make an assumption, so he was like, I'm getting married in Vietnam to my wife, do you want to come? Yeah, you can bring your girlfriend. I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, I can't just like go to Vietnam for a wedding as much as I love you, Vans. And then I just brought to my girlfriend. I was like, we can make a trip out of this if you want to. And then I worked it out so that like Blast paid for my flight from Bahrain to Vietnam. And then from Vietnam, I got a flight to a DreamHack event and they paid for it to go there. So I didn't even have to pay for a flight to go on this whole trip. So then I ended up going to Vietnam and then like taking 15 days there and then going to Vansilli's wedding, like actually making it to his wedding. It's kind of surreal to see someone from esports, not an esports event, getting married that I like. You know, I'm not like extremely close to Vans. He used to live in Toronto, so we'd hang out sometimes. But it was still kind of a special thing that we set up there. So that's what happened.
How long were you on the road for altogether?
Altogether, I think it was about 70 days. About 70 days.
Damn, so that's a vacation right there.
So you go from being on the road for 70 days to then being in your apartment for 70 days?
Pretty much, yeah. Both are weird. Both are very weird. When you're on the road for that long, like I remember, like I'd wake up sometimes and forget what country I was in. Like that's how weird it would get to be, because you'd like fly, because even I flew to a DreamHack in I already forgot which one it was Rotterdam or something, and then flew to Blast Spring or Leipzig, DreamHack Leipzig, and then flew to Blast Spring Series. And like at that point, you like sometimes you wake up in a dark room and you're like, you might have had a dream about something, or like you were in another country last week, and then you're like, I literally don't even know a country. It's kind of a scary thing, and like kind of a cool thing once you realize like everything's okay, but like pretty weird. And then when you get home, you feel like a stranger in your own home too.
Like you just
so it probably takes a little while to adjust from just that time change from Asia to here. I mean, that's what 12-hour difference.
And I spent 3 weeks in London, so like London was more my home than like my apartment was right when I got back. I knew more about that London apartment than I remembered about my apartment when I got home.
Yeah, 70 days is no joke.
Yeah, strange.
I'm just kind of curious then, because I've always been told that Toronto is a pretty big foodie city. Like there's just a lot of food there, and especially. Listen, people sleep on Canada and Asian food. Canada has very good Asian food. When I lived in Michigan, we would literally go to Windsor just for Chinese food.
Really? Yeah.
So
I can see that.
Canada's a sleeper on the Chinese food. But for a world traveler like yourself, does Toronto hold up to the world food?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first of all, great question. This is something I talk about a lot. There's not... The sexiest sell I have for Toronto is that we're really well balanced. You know, it's like I love the country. You got 4 seasons. There's no natural disasters in Toronto. There's a lot of things that are like make it a very livable city. But it's like, why don't you just go to New York? New York's like bigger and cooler and like everything with Toronto, but more. But in terms of the food, so this is how it happened. First of all. I think we still are the most multicultural city in the world. Probably not by a huge margin anymore. You know, probably New York is like way up there. There's a lot of great cities that are multicultural. But because of that, there are my generation, the millennials. I call myself a boomer online because if I don't call myself a boomer, everyone else will.
We're boomers in esports.
I think, technically we're boomers in esports. But for my millennial generation in Toronto that grew up, we are now the kids of immigrant families that owned a lot of the businesses in Toronto. They made their own restaurants. They may have been authentic to a fault to the point that it wasn't marketable to like younger people. But now the people who are my age, who are like learn from their families, who could like cook circles around any of the other chefs that don't have, you know, families that like learn from their families and so on, I'll have the opportunity to make like cool businesses here. So now you have like the cool marketable businesses that also have great authentic food from like all of these different regions. So yeah, Toronto, I'd say, is a top 2 food city in North America. For me, I think LA is extremely overrated. I think New York is number 1, and then Toronto. And I love food in the South too, so don't get me wrong. I've visited my brother. He works in at Southwestern. Do you know that university?
Yeah.
Yeah, UT Southwestern?
In Georgetown. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's a professor at Southwestern. So I visited him every year since I was like 13 years old. So I've spent a lot of time in Texas, and I really love barbecue, and I really love brisket,
Salt Lick, and all that in Austin, and
sure.
I mean, Austin's such a great like just diverse part of Texas. You know, it's kind of that's what it's known for. You know, it's just got a little bit of everything. Toronto, I know, is also known for like a lot of Indian food. Like Indian food's supposed to be pretty bomb in Toronto too, as far as I've heard.
Definitely.
You know, one thing I want to transition us here to a little bit of esports, because we got to pick your brain for a few things. We've obviously had so much talk recently of CS players, mid-tier 1 players, tier 2 players making the switch over to Valorant. It's kind of been like just a hot topic, you know, whether that's because they can't find organizations, the money is not there anymore, you know, for whatever reasons, these players are making what they feel is the best decision for themselves. And so we just wanted your take on, you know, not are they making the right decision necessarily, but understanding where they're coming from. Do you feel like it's the overall smart move for a lot of these players?
I feel like guys like us especially would understand, like, you know, they have like these players don't live in a vacuum where they don't have to like pay rent and like, you know what I mean, put food on the table for themselves, or like consistently tell or convince their parents to like give them a little bit more leash so that they can go pursue their dreams. Like eventually they have to come up with something tangible. And I feel like, unfortunately, I think the savage take is that a lot of the players in the tier 2 have been like living there for a long time, and there wasn't necessarily any real signs that talent that got robbed away to Valorant was bound to be tier 1 talent in CS. You know what I mean? Like even FNS, he's had his fair share of time in invite seasons and has developed players, and that might be the biggest loss that he gets to develop players. But like the prospect that he might make a real salary and lead a team to consistent top results in the top 10 seems extremely unlikely. Same goes for Sabrosa. A handful of the other players, you know, they were either missing something for too long, couldn't figure out this one thing about them, had a lot of potential, but couldn't make it work in a very kind of reasonable amount of time. And, you know, because of that, they moved on to Valorant. I would say the number one thing is for sure, like, first of all, we are in no place to criticize another person's life decisions. And I think people do that way too often. There's like some kind of sense of entitlement or thought that because like pros have become smart enough to not respond to you on social media, that like now you can say whatever you want about them publicly all the time. And like they're never going to fire back. They're not actually real people that can hear you, when that's completely ridiculous. And they can make whatever decisions they want. The prospect of them succeeding in Valorant, I don't know. But if I was them, this is what would cross my mind. I will be a tier 2 player if I stick in CSGO with looking at Orgless that didn't get signed, even though they did really well in Flashpoint. I would say ESL just closes doors on relegation, which was the best way to move up on merit without any support into the pro league, where you would be pretty much guaranteed to get a sponsor. Now there's no door open to get into that. And then thirdly, you know, all my friends are leaving, or half my team is playing Valorant half the time, making it hard for me to even practice with the people I already play with in a region that has always been bad on practice across the board. And so that, you know, I'd be fed up from that as well. And it doesn't cost, there's no entry fee. It doesn't cost you anything to go and switch to Valorant and try it. You're always welcome to come back as well. Nothing can stop you. I mean, even like Semler goes to Overwatch the cast, comes back to CS. That's possible. It's not really black and white. Like you leave, you don't come back. The door doesn't necessarily close behind you. It might be harder to open again, but it doesn't cost them much to go and try. So
how much is this, do you think, going to affect just the next generation of NACS in particular, right? That's where most of the names that we've seen leaving have come from. Do you feel like this could hurt a potential growth aspect, or will we see kind of some complacency amongst the top teams, right? Like they could potentially be in those spots, like you said, they're team-owned slots. The players are kind of the foundation, obviously, of these teams, but do you see the next generation being hurt because of the transition that we're seeing right now?
Yes and no. I think when the iBuyPower guys got banned, that was a giant hole, because that was potentially the top 5 players in North America all at once getting banned. 4. That was a genuinely big hole that took a long time to refill. And now it's, you know, maybe that it's not the same. It's not the same as that. This is definitely not the same as that. We aren't losing a Days to Steal, a Swag, and an AZK, who was like number 1. That's not the same thing. So from that perspective, in a sense, I almost wonder if it creates more room. I think a lot of kids who are indigenous to CSGO are smart enough to figure out how to get good enough at playing that they can develop themselves. And there'll also be less players that, for teams that don't want to take a risk on a younger player, will recycle somebody to come onto their roster that's like a tier 2 roster, that's like a tier 1 org with tier 2 roster. I'm sure you can think of a couple that I'm naming. And now they'll be forced to go for like an unproven talent and then sharpen that. And then I think that's great. So I'm not totally convinced on this like whole developing talent argument and how many players are actually going. And that is no, and I don't say that ill any of the players who have actually moved on, because again, like their decision, and I think it's smart, honestly. But I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's that bad.
What's your take on Valorant? Have you been playing it much? Or I know you've been tweeting about it a decent amount, so I'm assuming you've had some time in the server there. And
I think I like tweeting about it more than playing. I have a lot of fun tweeting about like the different personalities that you must have if you play certain characters in Valorant. I think it's a great game. It like right when you open it up and you go to the practice range. Have you guys played it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Decent amount.
Like right when you open it up,
I don't
you go
want
to
to
the practice
brag,
range.
Launders, but we did a show match between another podcast. It was supposed to be a best of 3. We beat them 13-0 on the first map, and then they quit.
Oh,
So,
wow!
Yeah,
Nice.
I don't.
Okay. ESPN Dallas. Not saying anything. Not saying much. I don't want to throw the names out there, but yeah, 13-0.
Streamed?
No.
Yeah, we actually.
So we
did have.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
We did have it casted. It was actually pretty fun. We were, like I said, we're supposed to do a best of 3 against them. We had these people come in and cast it for us. We're working on, fingers crossed, another really big one coming up here that are we allowed to say any names, Tim?
We'll tell you after the recording.
We can do that.
Maybe you can do it. You can join us if you want.
I'll leak something if you leak something.
There we go. Yeah, you give us a.
I'm a loose cannon, so I'll probably leak something anyway.
You give us a source, and we'll give you a source. But it did force me to put, because everyone knows you're not an official Valorant free agent unless you have it in your Twitter profile.
Yeah.
It is now in my Twitter profile. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what's your take on the game? How are you liking it?
I mean, it's like the feeling right when you get into a practice, like into the training range, is like your shots go in, the air strafing is intuitive, the crosshair looks good, everything's very clear, and that continues to be the experience into like your matchmaking games, and so for a lot, in a lot of ways, it feels exactly how you'd want it to, in the way that other games that have come out have not been able to nail that feeling whatsoever. The shots don't go where you want. Thing feels a little bit laggy. The visibility's off. It's always one of those, but Valorant seemed to have nailed all of those things. So in that way, it's great. The problem is that now we come into a world where, and I don't think this is legitimate criticism, but like, you know, people are playing this game, taking it so seriously to the point that it's like it's been mentioned that the gun skill is ultimately the most important thing in the game, but skills are having like a serious impact on the gameplay, and sometimes for bad, sometimes for good. I mean, it makes for really creative situations, but you know, there's certain things, like now people want like some kind of smoke on every character that's somewhat consistent, so that you can like do some basic stuff in tight situations. Whereas, you know, you might have a jet smoke that's like this certain size that you can't line up perfectly, or like the brimstone smoke, which is the most reliable, versus the omen smokes, which are it's hard to tell whether or not it's threatening for someone to see an omen smoke land where you can walk into it, or if someone's going to be inside in the first place. And so it feels like there's a little bit of yearning for people to try to make the game more into Counter-Strike, but that can't be what you do with it, because it's its own game and it needs to be its own thing. So I'd say like my personal experience is that like I had fun with it. I do get very frustrated in slow orbs or breach alts, or
Tim's a breach main, just so you know.
Yeah, I mean, Breach is an amazing character, and I yell at my team for not picking Breach.
Look,
I just don't ever see a Breach on the other team.
Yes, and that's exactly why. The only reason I'm a Breach is because I'm a team player. I put the team on my back, all right? I show up to practice early, and I leave late. And so I'm the last to pick. Well, what do you guys need? And everyone's just like, don't even ask that question, bitch. You know what it is. And I'm okay.
Hit the Breach.
I'll play Breach again.
The slow orbs are very frustrating.
Breach mains play to win.
I never take a match off. I play to win every single time.
Yeah, do you like the hero-based shooters in general? Like, is that like type of game style something you enjoy? Whether that be
I play. You know, I always put a few hundred hours into like every new game that comes out, just so I can have my own perspective. Like, I cannot analyze something without playing it myself. I don't know how other people do that. Like, I'm a pet can coach without like, he's played, but like not on a team or whatever. I need to be able to have the whole experience myself to be able to say things about it. And it really bothers me when people make comments about games they haven't played before. It, like, kills me. So I always do. So like I played, a fair bit of Overwatch, and like I never played much TF2 actually. Like I've tried it, but just never was a game that my friends played. But the skills aspect is not something I really feel strongly one way or the other about. I don't really like them as much in Valorant because I think I'm that camp. Maybe I was projecting a bit. I am the guy who feels like when I play Valorant and I get hit by a skill, I wish it was just that gunfight without the skill because I like the gunfight mechanics so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, the skills I'm not a huge fan of, honestly. Not completely in love with them, but yeah, like I pretty much just spam Sova. Like I play Sova all the time. I learned all his arrows. Like I love him.
It's not a bad one to quick pick though. He's also
Yeah, and no
pretty
one he never gets first picked, so like I feel like I make space for my team to pick up the Phoenix, the Rays, whatever. Pick whoever you want. But yeah, not a huge fan of the skills in specific.
My argument with skill-based shooters versus Counter-Strike, right? Because that's the one game everyone compares it to. Even whether it drives me nuts or not, I haven't decided yet. But I think the one thing is there's always going to be someone bitching about an unbalanced character or hero, and then it's constantly going to be motion. Like look at Overwatch. That game has tried to been balanced out for 4 years now, and it just isn't happening anytime soon. Where with Counter-Strike, it's just timeless. You have a few balance and few economy tweaks here and there, but for the most part, it's a timeless game that just has been what it is the whole time.
I know why they did the classes. Like the classes are 100% because then they open themselves up to a number of things, like the art options. Like down the line, people can create entire industries around Valorant if it's big enough with the arts and like creating fan art, selling clothes, models, cosplay, all of that stuff. You can do that so much. Representation is another big thing with the classes. They can kind of make new characters fit like any kind of demographic that they want to try to attract or appeal to or make feel included or whatever, which is great. And I feel like Counter-Strike, it would be nice if Counter-Strike had more of that, to be honest. Like the gameplay itself, I feel like I'm with you. Counter-Strike gameplay is just it's everyone can be the guy. Everyone can buy every gun. There's no skills that are unique to you that somebody else needs. So that's what makes it so awesome for like the individual, like the guy who wants to play by himself sometimes, play with his friends other times, can always be the guy if you're good enough in the match, and that's what's great about it. But I think that's what Valorant did, the class-based thing. It allows them to do all these different things outside of the game that can make it more interesting. But yeah, the balancing is a tough one.
Yeah,
but that they're always going to like they do. League of Legends. They do a lot of balancing, so they have it's a much bigger game to balance as well. So, and I think the goal of League of Legends, the goal of Dota, is not to get balance. That's like impossible because with that many variables, you have counters, soft counters, hard counters. The draft becomes very important. Hopefully, there's no drafting in Valorant, but the goal is not to necessarily balance 100%. It's to keep it fresh at all times without making it feel too imbalanced. Yeah.
To you, does it feel like the next big esport?
I feel like I have every reason to believe that, like, just not even on merit alone, like apart from the fact that the game feels great, it's got a great dev team behind it. It's already seen success. It's got the stamp of approval from a lot of people. That because Riot made League of Legends, and because they can activate Asia in a way that Valve can't even do, it's an automatic go. Like even Overwatch is more popular than Counter-Strike in Asia. Like that says a lot. So if Riot, who have a stranglehold on every PC bong in Korea, can be like, new games coming out, got a poster on every single window. I mean, there'll be kids who have never even heard of Counter-Strike. They'll be playing Valorant. It's going to be huge.
So once upon a time, you threw something out there that I think it was for the CSGO community manager or some sort of, whether it's joking or not, you threw something out there, right? And it had a lot of headway because people thought, man, this is a good person to be in that type of position, right? The community adores you, you listen, and you have great ideas in general, right? That's why you're doing what you're doing. So with that being said, what are some things you would like to now see with Counter-Strike, knowing you have Valorant, this up-and-comer game. Whether you think it's going to take market share or not of CS is kind of irrelevant in this. But there's obviously going to be changes made in Counter-Strike now to compete, right? There is competition. And so what are some changes you would like to see in Counter-Strike to kind of keep pace here or jump ahead, right? Like things that they can do to get ahead of it before Valorant kind of takes a stranglehold in certain areas.
Yeah, I think what's really important is just like you're saying, before they get a stranglehold means that you need to create just the perfect user experience as soon as you open up the game, especially for the first time. Like I think a first impression is huge. You can trick some people into learning Dota. I started to learn Dota. It's an incredibly hard and complicated game, and they added so many tools to try to help you. It doesn't work that well. Ultimately, if you're gonna get good at Dota, it's because you're like sick in the head and you just are committed to trying to win, and you're gonna try to do it no matter what. That's not that many people, and that's why the game's struggling a little bit. It's a hard game to learn. With Counter Strike, it's not that hard. It's a game of few skills that you master right over time. That takes a long time, but you can get to a level where you can have fun and still be like a pretty much an idiot and still have fun quickly. But when you open the game, it's like, what do you do? It's like if I have console, the first thing I do is I'm going to load up an offline server and like deathmatch or go to aimbots. I don't think that stuff is very accessible for people who are opening the game for the first time.
Not at all.
To try to figure out. Whereas in Valorant, the gun range, like what the fuck? Where is our gun range? That would be the easiest thing to add to the game. You put that in the main menu. It's an offline server, so you don't have to pay for your 120 tick servers, 128 tick servers, Valve. You just put them in that and then have an area that you can all in one learn movement in a small place. It won't be too hard to build. Pay a mapper to do it. You can have a little bot duel like aimbots, steal something from them, pay the guy to do it. Something, you know what I mean? Like you don't even have to do much.
Just imagine.
It feels like that would be pretty easy to do. Like that seems
super
like an easy thing
easy.
to implement. Yeah.
And they had a gun range before, and there's like time trials for the gun range that you can see on YouTube. I don't even know how to find that gun range anymore. Yeah. It was like a CSGO official map. I don't even know where that is.
And imagine custom crosshairs are such a big thing in Counter-Strike. Everyone's trying to look for the perfect crosshair. Imagine if you were completely new to the game and never knew you could change it until now they finally added something simple. But before, I mean, not a lot of people. Hell, I even think console is turned off by default.
Like enabled by default. Right? Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I think sometimes like a AA developer might release too many updates, more than they need to. So like a AA developer might get scared that they're competing with somebody else and then give their player base that isn't that big and isn't like going to see a boost just too many new things or bend over a little bit too hard to the point that you like piss off people or you don't save anything to impress people when it matters. Whereas Valve literally didn't give us anything until Valorant came out. Not a single fucking thing until the day that Valorant came out. If you think about it, they're just watching their charts go up and up and up, right? Why would they give us anything? And as soon as Valorant comes out, they can give us stuff. And it's great that it's stuff that we could have got years ago.
Yeah.
And they would have, but we wouldn't have been appreciative of it. It would have been stuff we treat exactly as we do now, where we're like, oh, we should have had this already. But for new people who are coming in, it's like, oh, this might be a cool feature I haven't seen before. Or like, this is something cool that I know that I had in Valorant as well. It's just good to know that I have this in CS. So it's just really smart by Valve to like have waited just for competition, because that's what business is, right? This is why competition is good for business, is because without it, there's absolutely no reason for you not to stagnate if you're going to continue to reap rewards. Like nobody can find a game like Counter-Strike, so they'll come to Counter-Strike no matter how bad it is. What was the question? What were we talking about?
That's it.
Just like things we would like to see changed in CS. Like, I feel like matchmaking is such a big part of it also. For somebody like you probably play on ESEA or, you're using FaceIt to play with competition at your level. But I feel like that's also one thing that would be probably one of the easiest changes, to implement some sort of season-based system where ranks are actually fun. Like it'd be fun to rank up. Right now, it's a pretty hellish experience because of the decay and how that process works. If you're a returning player, you have no incentive to continue playing, or at least level up through the traditional methods.
The rank decay is so stupid. I mean, it's like it takes you it takes you 50 minutes to warm up, and then you'll figure out how good you're going to be for the day. It takes you like 2 days to get unrusted and remember to use your grenades if you haven't played for 2 months. so much of the population is bouncing between different games and taking breaks from Counter-Strike, knowing it's not going anywhere and not changing, but always coming back. So this rank decay thing just means that like you're gonna have Smurfs who got terrible rank decay, like ruin your Gold Nova matchmaking. And yeah, what rank did you get?
So we used to be pretty high up. We were the I don't even know what they were because we played Face It for a little bit, but the Eagle one.
Yeah.
Right. So however far that was up. So that was okay, right? That's respectable rank for just some dudes. But now we're playing in silvers, and we try to explain to our listeners who like if you played Counter-Strike originally, like when Go first came out or whatever, right? If anyone asked you how to use a smoke in a silver, like to throw a smoke in a silver match, you really think silvers know smokes? No. And yet in all of our matches, people are like, all right, I'm going to smoke off CT. Like, oh, a silver.
We're running executes in like Gold Nova 1
really.
now,
Right.
you know?
Like
and so it's
like a giant Trojan horse, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody's a Smurf at that point, though. You know, and maybe that is the new true rank, but it feels awkward the way it is. I feel like there's no incentive for me to go and try and get my rank up through traditional range, matchmaking methods. It's just not a fun process because I know I'm going to quit again for a month or two anyway. I'm going to lose it, and I'm going to come back 2 levels lower than where I was at.
And sometimes I think like, they did Dota first. Dota's a year older than CSGO. Maybe they copied some stuff from that matchmaking system that they brought over to Counter-Strike. But they need to like hard limit the decay. I mean, going from Eagle to Silver is ridiculous. It's an absurd concept. As if you would like lose the knowledge of like of things that have nothing to do with mechanics, all the way down to the point that you are playing with people who literally don't even know how to change their sensitivity.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
And we do have we play with listeners all the time who are, they listen to the show, but they are league guys. But they're like, oh, you guys talk about Counter-Strike, let's play sometime. So they started playing with us, and they are true. Like, they are true newbies to the game, don't play Counter-Strike at all, and, like, they feel bad because they're not getting any kills. And I'm like, bro, this is not a silver match. This is not a Gold Nova match. Do not feel bad. Like,
right, yeah.
You are playing against people way, way higher than you, despite what the game says.
Go ahead.
That's just a symptom of, like, not seeing the system for what it is. Like, I think a lot of the quality of life changes they make to Dota is they play more Dota. Like, and if the devs, played more Counter-Strike, they could see something like that, like pretty clearly.
Like easy, it's like pretty basic stuff. We feel, at least for the ones that have been playing for a long time. A lot of this is just a little ridiculous. One thing that's kind of changing now throughout the league or throughout CS is we're seeing these rosters increase in terms of team capacity now. Astralis signed their 7th man today, and to somebody that's seen a lot of Counter-Strike, like it feels really odd to me. I don't understand maybe the madness behind it. I'm sure there's some logic to it, whether that's because of reducing travel, the amount of tournaments these guys are playing in. Maybe it makes sense to have an extra player or two. Do you see this being like the new trend, and just what's your take on adding, 1 to 2 extra players per team?
I am all for 6. I think that's a hard limit for me. I feel like the 7, 8, 9, 10 it doesn't make sense in the current state of the game. There aren't any other tier, probably not a single other org is willing to spend that much money on a Counter-Strike roster already. Astralis having a team they know can be number 1 with like a very young average age might be willing to take that investment. And they have Origin running separately, League of Legends or whatever, but like for the most part, they've only seen success, so it makes sense they're going to try something like this. But I don't see how you can sub players out who are subpar tier 1 players or up and coming players who are unproven. There's not really a player that you're going to have on your bench that is as good as your starting lineup, or honestly, anywhere close, right? And those 2 players they picked up have never been able to compete against Astralis. So I think they might be suitable to help out if somebody gets sick, or you want to have reduced travel. But I don't even think you want to do that because someone wants to have reduced travel. I say make them work, honestly. If they're getting paid an enormous salary, like they want a little bit more time at home, I think they need a new job, honestly, because it's just like that wouldn't be as an org, I wouldn't let my team change its composition because somebody was just like, I'm too tired to go to like one more event. Like it doesn't make sense for how much money they make, I would say. I mean, that might sound cruel, but like in terms of financial interest and the salaries they make, I just don't see how that makes sense. So especially if you're it's not even you're replacing, you're not replacing like Glaive with Nexa or like some equivalent IGL of like high stature or like device with simple. You're replacing them with a player who is not as good. They might be great in the practice room to give solid advice, and they might be a very suitable sub and much better because they're now officially on the bench and can spend time with them. But they're not going to be of the same quality and will never get to the same level probably as the 5 that are on the team. And so I just don't know. I don't know how they can afford this. They've already taken losses this year. I don't know how they can afford this. I don't know how Valve feel about this. I mean, this isn't something Valve have ruled on because they probably didn't expect it.
It sort of reminds me.
Are they going to go all the way to 2 teams? Like, I don't know.
It kind of reminds me of like in the NBA. You know how I don't know if you follow the NBA, but like with San Antonio, how they started benching some of their star players for games that maybe not have meant much to them, and then the league was like, "Yo, don't do that because you're hurting kind of TV ratings and." Okay, now you can bench them, but don't do it for important games that are on TV. Kind of reminds me of that, where it's like maybe a back end effect from this is that if Astralis is going to get invited to an event, maybe they won't get invited anymore in fear of like, well, are you going to give us the B team now to what we invited? Like we don't want.
I think that's a very real thing.
Yeah, we don't want your 6th, 7th, 8th guy. We want the number 1 ranked roster here.
What do you think is the tactical decision behind it? Like outside of the financials, right? That's obviously its own theory making right there. But from a tactical standpoint, what do you think they're trying to accomplish here?
I think with Essetag, maybe they add more court IQ to follow the basketball stuff. That like they can now analyze their stuff with a impartial observer or somebody who maybe just has good IGL experience, can add new perspective in a way that Sonic can't add. Or just as like relationships with players where you can talk to them and help them out in special ways that players can only talk to each other. Like I think that makes sense. With Yugi, it's like he is literally just he's an op. You're hiring an op for your team. He's probably not going to add a lot. He's probably not splitting any atoms for your team in terms of tactics. I mean, you have enough people that know how to do that stuff without him. And so I don't know what they're trying to accomplish from that perspective. That seems like it doesn't make too much sense. And Alish has said he doesn't even think the 6th player makes any sense. He doesn't think this experiment will work at all. So I'm pretty hesitant past 6. Alish doesn't even think 6 makes sense. I think that's actually a pretty interesting topic of discussion too. The tournaments, why would they want you if you're not bringing your A team? And even further than that, why would you go to a tournament and not bring your A team if you could? It's like,
the goal's winning, right? So
yeah.
if that's still the objective, it's a hard sell to your fan when you're bringing in like devices sitting for Jugi. I mean, it wouldn't make sense to do that. Like in no world would you be like, that's okay. From a player perspective, why do you think the player is making the choice? Young talent. I mean, it's not like these guys are veterans on the back end of their career. Why are they making the decision to do this?
The players that are coming on?
Yeah, the players that are coming on for like S-Tag, Jugi, like, is it just to be on the Astralis brand and maybe that helps you? But there's probably a contract tie here, right? So it's not like you can just walk and go wherever you want, I would assume.
It's probably easier to poison someone's food if you're like on the team, right? So you can like in the
it's a great analogy.
In the boot camp, you can probably, set something up. I think because it's undetermined how much they'll accomplish, I think is the big thing, right? Like nobody knows how much Yugi will do in CS, and nobody knows how, like S-Tag probably could have, but had a career that means now he's a little bit older and bumped the log in tier 2 teams. And sometimes you're a dealt a bad hand as a player. It happens all the time with careers, no fault of your own. This could be like the best thing you do in your career, and I think that's the only kind of player that you can get. And so they've got to get the ones that fell through the cracks, that are willing to, that have shown they have the talent at times, and then but are not in a position. They're going to the orphanage, basically they're basically going to the orphanage and adopting, they're adopting the kids they see could be models one day. That's like a really insidious example, but like that's like something that happens. But but yeah, they're actually just the only options they have are the ones who fell through the cracks because no one else would want to be on a bench because they wouldn't be able to play. And if they can get the salaries and play, I mean, that's what they're doing. They know there's a clock on their careers, and it's not that long as far as they know. Everyone that has gone over 30, 31 has basically retired besides like Forrest and a couple of other people. So, they don't want to test that. And so, yeah, the picks are limited. It's another reason why it makes it so weird.
The life cycle for a CS player is going to go your pro starting roster, Astralis' bench, Valorant Pro. That's that's just going to be the natural progression that a Counter-Strike player goes in.
Yeah, hey, if you're on Astralis' bench, I feel like you can get signed in Valorant.
Well, pretty quick.
Yeah.
Without even playing, probably.
Yeah, most likely.
Like someone's going to give you some money.
Half of these guys are getting signed without playing right now. I mean,
that's true.
If you're a name, you can probably get a contract somewhere. Yeah. Which is better than, again, that's the reason a lot of these guys were leaving Counter-Strike to begin with, right? Like you saw Freakazoid and these guys on Swole winning matches, playing a high-level CS, can't get a team behind them. I mean, Orgulus, same thing. So these guys can probably hop over to Valorant and find some money fairly quick, I would assume. Whether it's a lot, who knows, but they're probably getting more than they were getting playing at a tier 2 level in CS.
Yeah, anything is more than nothing. That's
for sure. So,
chase that bag, honey.
So I have one last CS question for you, and then one more personal question. But as you being, are you fully in with Blast? How does that contract work?
Like, how does the contract work? Well,
are you Blast's Bay?
It's not like maybe you're thinking like James DDK Face It type of thing. Yeah. No, we basically. So the deal with Blast, I owe Blast a lot because they, when I finished with Yahoo, they had Nicholas Estrup had emailed me after like a CS summit I did in LA while I was kind of landlocked in the US, and he said, do you want to do the first 3 blasts? And that was like, this was after Copenhagen, like the one that was like a horrible disaster that was only a one-day event that we don't talk about.
I think it was I think it was pretty smart. They set the bar so low that just going forward, it's cake.
Yeah. So the next event was Istanbul right after the major, and then like 2 events after that, Copenhagen as well. And they signed us on for 3 of those events, before I was even really back on the road. And so I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, yes, we will do that. And then when we did that, I have done every single Blast event since then. I have done more Blast events than virtually every single employee at Blast at this point. So, them signing us on, them giving us finals, more than just like a couple of handout finals. Like we've gotten like big ones. We did the Copenhagen finals. We did like Istanbul. We've done like 6 or 7 or something like absurd. We did the global final, grand final. Sometimes it's other casters giving us the final. Sometimes it was Blast. But like that's an environment where we feel like we're at a tier 1 event. We're getting all of these great events, and they gave us a chance in the first place. And I really love those guys. They're actually amazing. And it was so hard for me to sit on the sidelines and watch them get a bad rap throughout the whole of last year because of like Thorn, Richard Lewis, and like a bunch of other guys who had like personal beefs with like a specific dude, that made it rough for everybody involved with just the Blast name. Whereas like they like hearing it from me, when they had Astralis signed, Nicholas was like the day that Astralis ended up that they split off. Nicholas was just like came with me. He's like, thank God I don't have to deal with this anymore. None of them had personal relationships with anyone on Astralis in the first place. Like there was never of course, conflict of interest, and that's why it had to happen.
Right. Thor's doing it right now with TSM. If you follow him on Twitter, he's going crazy with the same shit.
Yeah. And conflict of interest is conflict of interest and should be taken seriously. Because it's not about like what you can prove they might do. It's about like what they might do that you'll never find out about, right? Like it's just about that option. You should always remove it if possible. And that's good. And then, but like they were just happy that, Astralis was out of the picture, and now they've cleaned it up. And now they're on top, man. Fucking Blast Spring Series, the best event I've ever done. It was amazing. 3 weeks in London. Top tier Counter-Strike, amazing studio, content, everything.
Perfect segue then into why I bring up Blast is because we talk about on the show all the time that you kind of have the 3 big dogs in CS. You have Blast, ESL, and now Flashpoint. And so we saw at the beginning of the first quarter of the year, ESL and Flashpoint, I mean, they were going at each other's necks, just wanting each other to bleed out. And then we laughed because it was almost like back behind the scenes. No one really brought you up, but here's Blast Pro, or not Blast Pro anymore, just Blast. Sorry. Just skating over everyone. Just
and really had the best of. I mean, we've honestly, I know you listen to the show. You're a diehard fan, obviously,
of course.
But we've talked about it several times on the show that Blast ended up being our favorite out of the three from how they turned out and how the event was run, with it being kind of split up and creating kind of a longer lasting impression, right? Because now you have that premiere series or whatever. I don't know the titles of what y'all are calling it, but the next round of games are about to come up. But all these storylines were created from that first part of the series leading into this one. Then you have the finals a few months after that. We've talked about it, and we honestly felt that so far Blast has left us with the best impression of all three leagues currently. And it's been just because we can create these storylines leading from one event to another. You see how a team evolves during that time span. The ESL Flashpoint has been a shit show because they fucking hate each other so much. But B, it's a fairly short season. Like, it comes and goes in kind of a blink. It doesn't. Season to me encompasses a larger part of the year, not like 1 month. It just feels like an elongated tournament that's going on, where you guys have really found a way to create a season without it being continuous, and it's great. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Oh, and sorry, to answer your question quickly, we've done everything Blast, and that's why, but we also are open to working with anybody. So we'll work on whatever events. But like IEMs, for example, they're going to be like the same kind of specific talent for IEM events that Intel hires. The ESL guys plus like OJ Borg, sometimes Pansy might come in, like a lot of ESL people, or just like other events, we're always open to it. But it's people have started to like now just kind of gravitate towards certain duos and like working with certain people, and that's just kind of the landscape. I think the saddest part is not being able to see like all my friends that we used to just freely go to from event to event. But yeah, like Blast sliding in with just the early Q1 slot for 3 weeks, no competition whatsoever. Watching Flashpoint, argue they were going to get all the tier 1 players and then tier 1 teams, and then ultimately get nothing, and then like ESL like just kind of running them over when it was like a situation where it was pretty much, if they just in a different point of time, it wouldn't have been an issue. You could actually run in 2 leagues, and there'd be no way for Valve wouldn't even step in to say like you can't play. ESL cannot tell you to not play in Flashpoint if it's happening at a different time.
Right.
So they just kind of went head on for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I'm just like, most of us just sitting there watching the world burn, I guess. But yeah, it was a pretty ugly like situation. And there's a lot of money in there, and I don't like that happened to Face It as well. And it got pretty nasty for sure. And then Flashpoint got hit even harder because like their product tried to emphasize the LAN aspect more than anyone else, right? Like they tried to do the whole WWE writing thing and like all of the trash talking and in-person stuff. That was completely stripped away, whereas Pro League never relied on that. So they could just go from the desk to the casters to the game, interview here or there. They had the exact same product everyone knew and loved.
Yeah.
So yeah, especially difficult for Flashpoint. But you don't want to see any of these big companies like really failing, as much as you might be in one camp or another. It's really dangerous for everyone.
Yeah, no, we agreed. I mean, we don't have any dogs in the hunt, so it was just more entertaining. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, we want to see good CS, and either way, it's like Flashpoint still had good CS. It was just on a different level than ESL as far as like the competition goes. But still, it was amazing entertainment for everyone from the outside, just seeing them go at it. My other question for you then on the personal side of things, and I think a lot of people, and you don't really talk about it as much, I feel like, as a CEO would talk about, but you also own, and correct me, is it okay to call it an org? Is it a company? Is it a lifestyle company with Boxer? What do you call it?
Yeah, it's so we've been an org.
It's a loaded question.
It's like, yeah. We have officially incorporated, so it is a Boxer Corp. But it is at first basically, we incorporated and we actually were going to pick up a Fortnite team. So we had 4 players that we had like loosely talk to, and they'd be like, yeah, we'd like to sign. And we're like, screw it, let's incorporate, and then like made up contracts and then wanted to sign them. And then one of the players ended up leaving. So then we didn't give the rest of them contracts. And then we were just like kind of this corporation that wasn't an org anymore. And almost thankful, because we found out how, Epic wanted to do esports and it was a little bit sketchy. So we were like, probably dodged a bullet there. And then moved into more head on with clothing. And like I had a clothing company when I was in university. So something that I already liked doing. And it was just something I was doing on Teespring and stuff as a streamer before. The logo is just something I made. And then all of the clothes and stuff designed by a number of people. And now basically we have a chance to do just like cool shit with people that we like other companies or Rama, to do like keycaps.
Yeah, I really like the keycaps.
Like that shit is so cool to me. I honestly, it's not going to sound good for a business, but like I don't even care as much about the money as I do about the fact that I can say that like we got to collaborate with Rama or make some dream collaboration for somebody. That's just the thing that they wanted to see, the clash between esports and this lifestyle thing they thought would never meet. That stuff gets me off. I love that so much. And I have the most fun with that. So, right now our team is basically like 3/5 Yahoo Esports. Actually, I got Luke and Zoreen, who used to work with me at Yahoo Esports, are both on the board for Boxer. And then I say 3/5 is like 3/6, but and then Nathan and Taylor, who have been there kind of from day one. And Squeaks, who's my co-podcaster as well, has a background in business as financial analyst. So we've got like a very we've got a lot of talent, a lot of smart people working on Boxer, all on the side while they have full-time jobs as well. And yeah, we have like more collaborations and more stuff that's coming out. We just don't know when to drop it because the whole situation, like,
it's a mess.
I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's would it be weird to just drop, because we have like skateboards that we made. So we've got like 12 skate decks basically that are supposed to be just like art for your room, and then a kind of like a book about the art, and then a shirt and a pair of socks and like a bunch of stuff, and it's just sitting there waiting because we don't
Just
know.
ready to go.
We're supposed to do like a Rona drop. Like can we?
Feel good about doing it. Do it now. You can do it. Look, if any of y'all want any of this stuff, by the way,
yeah,
I went and bought a couple of shirts from you. I really like the stickers and stuff that generally come with the apparel that you throw out there. If you want Launders' stuff, you better get your ass online so fast. I can't tell you. I've looked for the bomber jacket, the keycaps. Those things go in like a hot second. Not even joking. So if you want any of this stuff, definitely go check it out. It's badass, but it is gone quick. People are all over it.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of that is, it's the stupid streetwear thing where they're like specifically, there's like scarcity that's forced or whatever. But there's a couple of reasons. Like number one, since we're producing all of our stuff, it's just more feasible for us to be like, all right, we make this many things, we know we can sell them, as opposed to have excess that like stays over. And then it's that kind of method in streetwear has worked so well, where if you have just like artificial scarcity, people want to buy, people will be there faster next time, like that just works. And then the other thing is that it's way more fun. We don't have to have Taylor ship out one thing a week or like one thing every 3 days for his whole life, as like orders trickle in over time for different things, for like 50 items on a store, as opposed to like 3 items that all go at once. He goes to USPS once, ships everything out, kind of thing, and we can just move on to new products over and over again. So that's why we do that. You guys have merch too.
We do.
We do. We just launched our line. For our first line, we're actually working with I don't know if are you aware of who Alt is? Alt Esports. They do all the Counter-Strike merch, or not Counter-Strike, Call of Duty League and Overwatch League merchandising.
Oh, cool.
And so those guys, we collaborated with them, and we just had our first lineup come out, man. We'll actually have to. I'll get with you after the show. We'll have to send you some stuff for you to check out. But yeah, we just
Burglars collection.
Yeah. That's right.
Inspired by nothing. Inspired.
Oh, because 100 Thieves.
100 Thieves.
Okay.
I don't know. Is that an esports org? I've never heard of them. Never heard of 100 Thieves. 101 Burglars though. Definitely.
Is that a baby? Is that for babies?
Yeah, we have a baby
We do
onesie.
have
So
a onesie.
I'm a expecting father. We're about to have our kid here in like 5 weeks, dude. It's right around the corner.
wow.
First
That's the
one.
bit. Is I had a kid in September. He's about to have a kid, so we're like the gamer dads. So we got to provide for all the gamer dads out there.
Yeah. I like that.
Gotta-
I think there's a market.
Gotta have. Yeah, it's really the toddler market in esports is really just not. It's ignored. It's really a shame.
Yeah.
We figured why not? Why
They're
not?
screaming and crying and just getting ignored somehow.
Any baby launders out there that we need to send some onesies to?
Not. I don't know, man. I don't know how long it'll be. I don't feel like I'm not mature enough to have a cat, so I don't know when I'll have a kid. I don't
The
know.
most low maintenance pet there is.
Yeah. I can't even take care of something that takes care of itself. But yeah. So yeah, how much do you sell your stuff for? Do you have? Is that out already?
Mm-hmm.
So our onesies and our shirts for $20. Our shirts actually sold out. Our hoodies are I think $60.
I'm looking it up.
I think they're $60 for the hoodies. Those are still in stock. The onesies we made on a limited time thing, so those came and went relatively quick. Which surprisingly, we had people buy those, so that was cool. I'm sure we'll see some photos coming through, but they just shipped out about a month ago. So
yeah, the hoodies
should have
are
it.
$60. It's pretty cool though.
We had a lot of fun with it. We actually got a shout out from 100 Thieves in one of their releases that they did. They threw the 100 burglars on top of one of their apparel in the middle of their video that they did for some shoot just recently. So I'm glad that they recognized it and had some fun with it, but it was a good time. It was a good time for sure.
And you want to talk about releasing stuff in this time. We released it kind of before everything was shutting down, and we had all these plans. We were going to go to LA because that's where Alt is stationed, right off Huntington Beach. And we were getting all excited for it, and then everything shut down. So we're like, okay, well, here's the release online.
So wow, that sucks, man.
It does.
But yeah, I thought it was really cool to see that band art. So I was like, oh, okay, because like merch is just wicked. Like first of all, you can actually like make good money doing it, and you can just add so much flavor to whatever you're doing.
Yeah,
and it's like fun.
Yeah, we definitely.
For us, we just got to make it an extension of our personality, right? We just got to have fun with it. We did what we wanted to do. We're like, let's take a shot at somebody in a fun, playful way, and we just had a lot of fun doing it. It was our first lineup that we've actually ever dropped, so it was exciting for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, thank you. I was we got some more in the works. It's just again now with all the coronavirus shutdown, it's kind of like, all right, well, when do we want to do it? Because you obviously want to have some fun with drops and everything, but.
Yeah, I was talking to some people and they were like, they are spending more now than ever because like with their online spending has like gone up.
That's all you have to do. The only thing you have in life is to buy things online.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know I've been, trying to build a bomb shelter, basically ordering things that I need that I might not have to. At first I was like, okay, home gym. I was like on a treadmill. It's like all this kind of shit that I definitely did not need to order. So this and they're trying to stimulate the economy, right? So they're probably expecting people to spend the money that they get anyway. So maybe it does make sense.
How many rolls of toilet paper does Launders have at his house right now?
No, I'm not a hoarder. Okay, I grabbed before this all went down. I was actually pretty well set up, so I got to walk through the grocery store. And then when they were like all almost sold out, like I was a guy who walked in knowing that like all the toilet paper was getting sold out for some mysterious reason. But when I walked in, like the psychology of it still had an effect on me where I looked at it, I was like, should I get that last roll? Even though I don't really need it because it feels like this is some kind of crisis that I should be worried about. But I've only got one. So like one
package. Yeah.
Package. Yeah.
Well, things are getting back to normal. That's probably all you need at this point in the game.
Yeah.
It's all getting back there. So perfect, Launders. Well, hey, this was a lot of fun. I hope you can come on the show again. Hopefully our paths cross whenever we can start traveling again and going to events. If you ever come to Dallas, let us know. We can get some barbecue. I don't know. I feel like Dallas is kind of...
What's the spot? Pecan Lodge?
Yeah, Pecan Lodge, dude. It is really good.
Look,
that's a bomb spot. That's only really for lunch. You like have to get there during lunchtime, grab your food, and you're in and out. There is nothing past like 2:00 over there. It's all sold out.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I am the worst. If you want food advice, it's like there's a Chili's down the road. Whataburger's pretty good. I get Kroger sushi from the grocery store. That's my sushi spot. That's my go-to.
Okay.
So it's just, I gotta keep up this toxic waste that is this body, and just eat the worst.
I mean, I literally just bought like 6 of the biggest sprinkled donuts ever. And that was like pretty much all I ate today. So yeah, I'm not. I'm
So you were amped up and ready to go. No, but in all honesty, dude, we really appreciate you coming on. We've been looking forward to it for a long time. Hopefully, we get to have you on again sooner rather than later. But again, man, really appreciate your time today. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you guys for having me on. Hope you have a good one.
All right.
You too,
Thank
buddy.
you, buddy.